In 2008 the Icelandic economy collapsed, leaving the country owing billions of pounds to Britain. Attempts by the banks and the corrupt government to make the people pay were met by protests and violence on the streets, but still the people were ignored. Right-wing politics grows stronger. Through ignorance and desperation the people began to embrace the neo-Nazis. They began to blame the foreign workers who made up 20% of their country. Racist attacks became commonplace, hate crime after hate crime, until even the children were not spared. The Polish, who made up the majority of the immigrant population, organized themselves into a militia, and after constant provocation, began to prepare, breaking into a sporting firearms warehouse in Keflavik. And now with a large supply of ammunition they could make their own weapons. The only way that the new Polish militia felt that they could have any justice was if they organized a coup. First they started fires to distract the emergency services, and using the basic training that they received during national service they attacked. Fierce fighting broke out on the streets of the capital, and in the countryside, the villages were easily taken by the militia. Iceland had no military or self-defense force, and with only a 15-man squad of armed police, the country would soon fall. The Icelandic government asked NATO for help, but the other countries did not want to be involved in a civil war, or to help the quasi-fascist debt-ridden regime that the Icelandic state had become. The only nation that was willing to help was Britain, but it would be at a price. In exchange for the assistance from British armed police, the London government demanded, and received, full control over all Icelandic banks. After minor clashes with the British police, most of the Poles went underground. As it was almost impossible for them to leave the island, they started a hit-and-run technique of guerrilla war. The London cabinet met and decided to send in the British Army as assistance to the police. With the army in Iceland, the people believed that the fighting would soon finish, but it continued for many months, until the Icelandic people began to question why it was taking so long, and did the British have any other reasons for taking so long. Eventually a peace treaty was put forward by the Poles. They would put down their arms, in return for protection from the neo-Nazis by the British Army, for the next 5 years, and to equal rights to citizenship in Iceland. The Icelandic government protested, but they were already now under military occupation. With no other alternative, they allowed the British Army to stay, and granted citizenship to anyone who had lived in the country for over 1 year. With the new immigration and citizenship laws in place, larger numbers of refugees started to come to Iceland. A year after, and the British Social Services changed the benefit scheme to allow people to claim benefits in any European country, including Iceland, and so the immigration grew. With a loan from the British-controlled Icelandic banks, new settlements were made in the east of the country to house the new immigrants. These rapidly grew as most of the 100,000 immigrants who used to come to Britain every year were now going to Iceland. Within 4 years the Icelandic native population was a minority on the island, and with English being the main form of communication in the media and education, Icelandic culture began to die out. In the last months of the 5-year military occupation, a general referendum was held. The majority of the population, most of which had settled within the last 5 years, voted to become part of Britain. Right-wing politics grows stronger.